Boop. How's it going? Welcome to the podcast.
What are we? Fools having fun.
Fools having fun, very
Please
nice.
introduce us.
Here we go.
Okay,
So it's
I'm
talking
Jake,
time.
and this is Joe.
And I'm
Right.
Peter. I just interrupted you. I'm
This is-
bad at this.
We have a guest speaker today, Peter Gibby. He has graduated Binghamton University. He is now attending.
Binghamton
grad school.
University. Yeah.
He's now continuing to attend. Yeah, getting an MBA. He's a real smart guy. He likes philosophy, and he's gonna be an actuary. There we go. I don't know. He's got a cool little mustache at the moment, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Should we pick something? What's the purpose of life?
I can answer that.
I
I've been actually thinking about like purpose recently, and I think that a lot of times purpose is derived from learning and from experience. If you kind of think of life itself as a metagame or a game of games that
Mhm.
you learn to play, then the purpose is to become good at that game or at all games. If you think about it that way.
Would this go into that idea that when we were last talking, I forget the philosopher, but you're saying like, kind of the purpose in life is to become the best, or to become so powerful that you could change whatever you want,
Nietzsche.
but you choose not to.
Kind of,
Is
yeah.
that the same idea?
Actually, it does kind of line up with that. I didn't really put that together, but
Yeah, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche believed that the purpose of life or the morality of life was to gain power. He had a
He had
specific
a weird
definition.
definition for it.
He
Yeah, I had trouble with the definition.
yeah, his definition was let me see if I can
The
recall.
ability to change something, which
The
is pretty
ability-
standard, but I guess it's not a negative way. That's how I would describe it. Because I think when
Yeah.
you think of power, you think of it as something that you assert over others, kind of control others, but he was saying more power in oneself.
That's what he thought was the ultimate power.
Okay.
So power, the way he defined it, was just the ability to make something that you dislike into something that you like. So a bad into a good. So that could be like physical force. If I don't like this cantilever, I can move it. That's power. Or if I don't like that my perspective of the world is awful and I hate everything, I could change that perspective. Now it'd be great power as well.
Okay.
So
And so he was saying so he's saying they're different types of powers, right?
yeah, actually.
Okay, so he's acknowledging that there's a difference, but he's saying,
Well-
nonetheless, you should. Okay.
So it's very complicated because he believes that there is one thing. He's a monist in that regard.
Yeah.
That the universe is made up of one thing, and it's the will to power. But the will to power takes different forms, and it can overcome itself, and that's core to his thesis that growth is through self-overcoming of one form of power becoming stronger and overtaking that previous form of power. An example that I think he uses in some of his writings is an acorn or a seed becoming a tree. It has to stop being an acorn in order to become the tree, but becoming the tree is obviously better for it. So it has to destroy its past self and become a better future self.
One way I remember hearing was he tried to change this from, I don't know if he would call it unconscious and conscious,
Mhm.
but kind of his equivalent is becoming aware of what's in your unconscious
Mm.
and then integrating that into your conscious self rather than just being controlled by your unconscious.
Yeah. I think
Same guy you're saying?
Same
Yeah.
guy.
Okay, yeah.
I believe there's a specific quote that people like to throw around that refers to that phenomenon that you're talking about. The what was it? When you stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss stares back at you.
Mhm.
And he's talking about looking into your own abyss,
Yeah.
like the hell that you can create in yourself, or just the awful actions that you want to do, the bad within you, and
Mhm.
find a way to make that a good for you and for other people. That's true power, not just ignoring it or pushing it to the side. In his earlier writings, he believed that
He's saying make that desire into a good?
Yeah.
Because not the actions, because
Not
you're going
the
to change your actions, but obviously not the desire.
Yeah.
The desire is going to be there. It's just a matter of how you use it, essentially.
yeah.
And so if you look at it enough, you can use it in a way that's not so destructive, or maybe not destructive at all.
Yeah, like for instance, if you have like I don't know some pent up rage, if you like go for a run instead,
Right.
and that boils off the rage, you use
Right.
that energy in a productive way. You're
Right.
healthier for it,
Right,
and that's a benefit.
Yeah.
He actually does criticize people who just kind of push it back. Early on in his writings, I believe he stated that the pinnacle of society, or what people should be striving to be, are the philosophers, the artists, and the saints, I think he said. And he later took the saints out because he was like, oh, the saints, they don't recognize these things about being a person, about being an animal, like the violence that you might want to take part of. They just deny it and just pretend it doesn't exist. And it's like there is some strength there just to overcome like that desire, but it'd be stronger, it'd be more powerful if you could incorporate that into your true self, because it is a part of you and you can't do anything about that.
0 is less than a positive number. You know, that was a weird way to put it, but you know.
Yeah.
Because like
it took me a second
they're
to-
essentially taking that thing that's negative and making it 0, which for most people is better. But the best thing is to then flip it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And use it for something.
So would he say like pushing it into like exercise and going for a run? Is that flipping it?
It could be. It could be.
Okay.
It could also not be. If, for instance, the energy behind, like the true energy, like you might feel like, oh, I'm so angry. I'm going to go on a run. That's going to get better.
Yeah.
But if it's like you're angry at your partner or something, and you do this all the time, and you're like not spending any time with them,
Don't do anything.
yeah, then you're kind of taking the weak path out, which he views as immoral. What you should do is the hardest thing possible at all points in time. The hardest thing wouldn't be to go on a run and avoid the situation, be to confront and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. The hardest.
So what's an example of an anger that you should go on a run for then?
Maybe if you lost your job and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
What are you gonna do? Go shoot up the.
So it's
shoot
when
up
it's out of
your to work.
Yeah.
Don't
when
do that.
Yeah, that doesn't go
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, when it's out of your control. When
Yeah.
when there's nothing left that you can do to
Mhm.
fix it, the best thing is to then get some good for yourself out of it. I
For
guess.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the line. Get fired. Well, fuck you.
I'm gonna go for a run. See you in 2 hours.
Yeah. And I think that how am I gonna say this? Because that seems very interesting and like I think there, and this is probably gonna go roundabout, whatever. But I think there's a lot of drive to kind of get rid of our emotions, kind of suppress them, become these rational things that don't act impulsively, and we just, that's kind of that's seen as being a very strong, logical person. And I would argue in most cases, but kind of going with this argument, I would say that it's better to embrace your emotions, to embrace these impulses, but then not let them control you. Don't suppress them, but also just find a way to turn them into a reason to run and then make you stronger, Because at least in the US, I don't know if I can talk for other countries, there definitely is that, people like that rational, logical mind that doesn't impulsively do things, that is like glorified,
Yeah.
And in most people, that's probably best, but there is more.
There are a lot of cultures that do that, like in China and in Japan. It's being very stoic is kind of what is the ideal. Don't show any emotion. Kind of act like a robot in some cases, and
Right.
that's not a healthy way to go through your life all the time, because
That's not the best.
those emotions are still going to be there.
Right.
In fact, it makes me think of my philosophy of psychology class, where we talked about emotion and how the theory that we were discussing was that emotions are intentional, meaning they're the same thing as an action. It's our way of kind of projecting onto the world in a social manner. So if I act angry, I'm acting angry to change something. It's directed at something in order to change it. And so it's the same thing as an action, which it kind of blew my mind when I first thought of it that way, because it's like, if I'm sad and I come to my girlfriend, I'm trying to change something. It's not, I'm just sad. I'm sad about this. I want to change this. And so by doing that, there might be some solution that I can achieve either directly or indirectly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that could be said for the reason we have emotions are I mean, I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's creating new reality. You're now in the sad reality. Sad reality wants to do this now. It's your motivation to do a certain action.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to just ignore emotions, but it's very popular.
But I think going with the whole Nietzsche thing, where he first took a saint, right? He took a saint, because I can see how neutral is better than negative. So I can see how initially you think, okay, these things are bad, so I need to suppress them. That is a good temporary solution. Maybe for some people, that's the best they can conjure. So I think it makes sense to a point, but eventually you have to be like, okay, I could do better than 0. You
can also argue that just going from negative to 0, you'll just go more negative the next time. It will probably recur.
Well, right. And then there's the whole
Yeah.
presumption, because I guess I was assuming that you could forever stay neutral. But yeah, probably once you suppress it enough, it's gonna explode.
Not for some people. I mean, I'm interested in like poetry as well, and I was reading haikus by dying monks in Japan and China, and some of the stories are pretty crazy. Of like they're just sitting there and they literally meditate until they die.
Yeah,
and it's like it's pretty hardcore. That is they
hardcore.
just suppress all emotion, and it's very interesting in their philosophy. They would actually disagree, and they would say that the neutral, the zero, is better than the positive or the negative. It's what's the word? Shoot, Zen, the Zen of it. That Zen or just the nothingness. That's the goal. And so, like not doing anything, and in fact dying from just not moving or not eating, not breathing. Like that's what we should be shooting for, is to kind of overcome your physical restraints. Nietzsche kind of criticized that and being like, that is a cheap way out. You're just avoiding all future peril.
I think that's what I was gonna say, because I think everything that we've said in the last 15 minutes are in the assumption of playing the game. But there's people that are talking about the nothingness, zero being the best. That's kind of another way of looking at it, in the sense that, well, you could just separate out that and then acknowledge that there is no plus negative, just, remain as you are. But, I guess in that neutral manner, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting. And so Nietzsche just bashes that, which makes sense. Because I don't know, I mean, I know you have a different stance than I do on it, because, and I'm back and forth, but like, because you don't think there's a way to escape the game, right?
I don't. I think
right.
I think that Nietzsche kind of has informed my view of this world.
I think the only way you start getting an opinion that you can escape the game is once you start experiencing it. And so I feel like someone like Nietzsche, someone who's buried in these thoughts, would never have the opportunity to experience it because they're so built in their logic and understanding of the world. I don't know, but again, I'm back and forth. Like, I don't really know if you can break from it, but I can understand why he would laugh at it and be like, "No, you're crazy," because he would be one of those people, like those ideal people that could just never break from it, so he would never experience it and never even begin to understand. Yeah.
I would say that a Zen master wouldn't argue that it's zero. They would argue that really Nietzsche's growth mindset, in a way, is just another game. And so what they're really doing is escaping the game.
Yeah.
And it's a weird back and forth.
What Nietzsche just says is that they're trying to play the game just in a different manner.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
They would say that about him.
Yeah.
And he would say that about them.
Yeah.
Right.
So
they're both looking at the other and be like, what a loser.
Yeah.
You believe this guy playing the game? Yeah.
What do you think, Joe? Can you break from the game, or is it just another game?
I don't know. I mean, if you're in the moment, you could say there's not really a game here. Then the instant you start thinking again, you're playing a game, one way or another.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Like if you're just examining the moment, then there is no game, because I think the game has to exist in time. But if you're in the moment, there is no time, and so it is just that.
Yeah, that's what I would really call Zen. It's that bliss in the moment, and then even if you have a Zen master speaking, like, they're still playing a game. But when they're by themselves, they've convinced themselves, I am a Zen master because I have all this Zen, but they can't see it because I have to speak to them.
Yeah, I would honestly argue that you cannot be Zen anytime you speak.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thinking of it this way, of like the bliss in the moment, I think that Nietzsche actually kind of incorporates this into his ideal. The Übermensch, or the all-powerful man, is someone he believes that at all points in their life they have they had a what he says is a love of fate, or amor fati. So that they have the power to change everything and anything that they want, but they realize, I don't need to. Everything's perfect. I wouldn't have it any other way. And in that sense, you're kind of living in the moment. Everything's perfect. And Nietzsche had some strange ideas as well, obviously. Like, he believed that the universe was on repeat all the time, and therefore it would go on forever. And so the goal was to reach a pinnacle in just an instant, and that's good enough for your entire life to be built upon that, because that time that you were at your highest will live on forever in perpetuity because of this infinite repetition of some kind. He had a fancy word for it, but
yeah, you send some wave into reality from being at that point.
something like that. I don't really understand it because it is kind of an idea that, okay, if we take our understanding of the universe, like Big Bang, Crunch, or whatever happens at the end, what Nietzsche kind of thinks is, okay, it will just happen again. Whatever that was, it would all happen again, identical to how it just happened, and therefore the best thing you can do is to maximize yourself at a specific point in time, I guess. Ideally, it would be at every point in time for your life because that's what you'd want, but it's okay if it's just one point in the past you became Ubermensch and then you just fell from grace and you're miserable for the rest of your life. But as long as you reached that moment, you ascended, became something greater than a human.
Peaked in high school.
Yeah,
And
same.
there you go.
I won a mental math tournament when I was in 4th grade. That was my peak.
Oh my god. Now, did he like rationalize amor fati? Because that was a Stoic idea. Like that goes back to like Aurelius or Greek philosophers.
Oh, he did take a lot from Greek philosophy, and in his early writings, he tried to classify the world as like being either Apollonian or Dionysian, and the conflict between the two. He was like, Apollo was like the god of order, Dionysus was the god of chaos, and like there's like this like a distinction and a conflict between them, and so he did take a lot from Greek philosophy. Personally, I've never read any of it, so if there is or other Stoic philosophers who are like Amor Fati, I'm not sure if he got it from them. I think he, from my understanding, he kind of built it up on his own. Once you get to a specific point with power, if you had the power to change everything in the world, it's like I guess technically you could, and then you'd be Amor Fati because you're like, oh, I've made a perfect world.
Yeah.
Or you could achieve that point, being like, I could change everything, but I don't want to change anything because it's already perfect.
Yeah. Because I think Amor Fati translates to love fate.
Yes.
And
exactly.
so you just love everything as it is, no matter what happened, no matter what will happen. And then you just live with it because you can't really do anything about it. You're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to rise at. So you have to kind of contemplate with what's that mean about like the Holocaust, for instance. If you love fate, do you love that happened?
Yeah.
Do you try to rationalize and say, oh, because that happened, some other great good that we can't even foresee has happened, and therefore it balances out? That seems, I don't like that. I'm not a utilitarian. So
what's even harder is to look at yourself.
Yeah.
All the shitty things can you really love like the extreme depression you went through?
No. I still say that at the time, I think I would rather just die. And I wouldn't have missed anything, honestly. I feel better now.
Right.
But I wouldn't be upset if I just didn't get to experience anything else because it was so bad at the time.
Yeah.
Knowledge a lot harder, or knowledge a lot easier than understanding. Like, we can know that we should love everything. But then it's like, well, I definitely don't. It's like, well, you should. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, are you sure? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, well.
Probably the hardest thing is, like, you mentioned it before, is when you see something you don't like or something you want to avoid, like, you go in the opposite direction towards it. Because that pushes you away from it. You actually need to go closer to it. Like, to confront. When you face a fear, it'll push you in the opposite direction. And some will say that what you really need to do is push towards that fear as much as possible. And then when you're thinking about this in your head, it's like, okay, yes, but I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, because it's so scary. It's like who would
there
run
are some
towards it?
things that I will think, and I'm like, I should do this, but I will not.
Yeah.
That is that. Then I'm like, Jake, come on. And I'm like, no. I'm like,
No.
I'm like, you're gonna think about it for 20 minutes, so then you can tell yourself you thought about it, but you know the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there before too, but I've been trying to get myself into the habit of just whenever I see something that's uncomfortable, I just try to do it, and then I think that kind of is playing this game of games, the meta game, in that if I get good at doing things I don't like to do, I just kind of do things I dislike, and then it becomes a habit, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing it now, so
yeah.
Even if I feel like I dislike it, it's like it's already done, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's in the past.
You eventually, what I think is you eventually get deeper. Like, you start with easy stuff. Like,
exactly, yeah.
Easy stuff is like just going for a run. Or
getting out of bed
like
in the morning.
Getting out of bed. Or doing your homework.
Yeah.
Like, starting your homework not the day it's due. Or, like, little things like that. And then you move...
I still gotta learn that, though.
And then you move towards things like, since I was 12 years old, I've always done this thing.
Mhm.
It's always given me this gut reaction. How do I change that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, okay. What next? Find something else to distract you. Like, okay, I'll leave that for later. I'll work on this instead.
One of these instructions for life that I wish I was able to do more when I was reading over it was the one that says spend time by yourself every day or something like that.
Oh.
That's something that I miss. Just being all by myself.
Of the 19, what one would you implement in your life if you could?
Oh, I didn't get all the way through the list,
Yeah,
to
just
be honest. So
Let's read it. Because I do not read this very often.
so it's I'll read it out loud just so it's on. But take into account that great love and great achievement involve great risk. When you lose, don't lose the lesson. I think it says. It's kind of difficult. Follow the 3 R's: respect yourself, respect others, and responsibility for all your actions. Remember,
That's a tough one.
that is a tough one. I think that's something that I don't think anyone can ever really do.
Yeah.
I think that we're all in our heads a lot.
All my actions,
Yeah.
everything, and I have to be respectful to you.
Ugh,
Jesus.
disgusting. I couldn't do that. And then it's
Yeah.
kind of difficult with the light, so
I
maybe
can
someone
read
else will take over.
Remember that not getting what you want is sometimes a wonderful stroke of luck. Number 5, learn the rules you know how to break. Learn the rules so you know how to break them properly. That's a good one. Number 6, don't let a little dispute endure a great friendship. 7, when you realize you've made a mistake, take immediate steps to correct it.
That one's hard too.
That one is hard.
Yeah.
The immediacy behind it, I think, is the hard part because
Yeah, immediate.
I can always like look back and be like, that was a shitty thing to say to my girlfriend or whatever, and then kind of like apologize for it. But it's like in the moment, I was doing the shitty things. It's like, how can I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be that self aware and be like, oh man, like 2 seconds ago, shit.
He does give you a caveat. It doesn't have to be, it's immediate after you realize.
That's fair. That's fair.
When you realize.
Yeah.
You're like in the shower, you just run out of the shower.
I'm
so sorry.
Thanks for giving me some time, Dalai Lama.
Number 8, spend some time alone every day.
That's the one I read. I'm like, I gotta do that more.
That's a
that.
good one. Yeah, you definitely should. I feel like I pretty much do.
Hmm.
I mean, doesn't everybody at least a little bit? How much is some time? I guess that's the question.
I don't count being on the toilet sometimes. Like, I want to have like some time where like maybe an hour.
Yeah, I guess what it's saying
Yeah.
is like truly alone.
Yeah.
Not just physically alone with people, but like phone off, laptop off, not doing anything, just hanging out by yourself.
Only happens at 1 in the morning.
Yeah. Number 9, open your arms to change, but don't let go of your values. That's beautiful. 10, remember that silence is sometimes the best answer. That one's cool. I like, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with silence.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. That was the date I was on yesterday. She did not like silence.
Oh.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not a fan of silence. It's like, come on.
It can also be interpreted a little differently as like if someone asks you a question you don't know the answer, the silence is just better than you spouting off something that's completely wrong.
Mhm.
So I might even add on like not and being okay with your I'm gonna say something like a knowledge or what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like the video we watched a couple days ago. What's the guy's name? Entrepreneur.
Shamak. Yeah.
Shamak, yeah. He was saying there's a lot of power in just being able to admit, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
and change your mind. You know, like because somebody asked a question in the Q&A, and he's just like, I don't know. He was like, by the way, people should say I don't know more, because let's be real, nobody really knows everything. Like, it's like, I don't know what the best answer to that is.
I don't
That's a
know.
good question.
I
Like,
don't know if anyone even knows anything.
that's
Yep.
Like, what is knowledge? Is that just like a construct that we've constructed that doesn't mean anything? Like, I believe a lot of things. Like, I can say that whole act on these beliefs, but it's like, I don't know if I can know anything. Like, that's such a high bar. Like, I don't, like, an example that I've thrown out before is like, I don't know if I exist. It's obvious, like, people, like, responses, like, Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And obviously, I think, therefore I am, but by his theory. But it's like, what's it mean to exist? Like, what's it mean to be I? What am I? Is there that I, like that feeling of I, or is that somehow an illusion constructed by the brain of some kind? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So
what I loved was it was actualized.org. What's his name?
Leo.
Leo.
You
yeah,
forgot his name? Come on.
I'm sorry.
He's our
Come on.
dad.
Leo, his
Jesus.
meditation, one of his meditations would be you point at a tree
Hmm.
and then you slowly think about things until you can trace it back to yourself, and then you try to point at
you,
you. And
you're the pointer.
yeah, you can never really find you.
Huh.
Like, are you your brain? But then you can't really point exactly at the spot that is you
Right.
in the brain, no matter what it is. Because you can separate from your hand, separate from your arm, separate from your...
And then
your
the way
heart.
we say it, also we're separated. You know, we say my heart beats, not I am
Yes,
beating.
yeah.
You say my heart. These are my things. My hands, my
Mhm.
heart, my brain. Even
You point at your
but
brain.
then there's
Yeah.
me. But you say my brain, but me is in the brain. Yet like,
Well, the question is,
but that's how we see
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I'm
Very-
not
very-
saying we
very true.
are. Yeah, but that's that's kind of the, what's the word? Just
self-consciousness.
I
No.
guess just the.
It's a fun
counteracting
game to
of it.
play. Like when you're meditating, you're thinking about these things. It leads you down different paths.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the goal.
Yeah, and then you are the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, I guess I could be a tree for today. And then you get hurt, and then you're like, oh, I am me. Whoop. It all vanishes. A tinge of hunger comes.
Uh-huh.
Whoop. All
Yeah.
meditative just vanishes. Oh, I am Jake West. I must get hungry, or I must eat right now, and bang, bang, bang.
You lose everything.
It's like that that TED Talk, the right side, left side brain.
Yeah.
Have you seen the TED Talk by Stroke of Insight?
I don't know.
I think that's what it was called.
It's very possible. There was a
Possible.
time where I went through and just watched a bunch of TED
I feel like
Talks.
that happened to most of us. Yeah, that was
It's been a while.
my second half freshman year, beginning of sophomore year. Just fucking went through them.
Mhm.
But she had a stroke, right?
She had a stroke.
Yeah. And whatever part of the brain it was her self-association.
Yeah,
Mm.
So she lost all self-association. So everything was just her. It was like one
Everything-
big wave.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's
It's interesting to think that there's a part of the brain that does that. I never even considered that before.
Yeah. It was also old, so she was kind of talking about it wrong too.
I think she was dumbing it down though for the audience. No?
She was, yeah. Her point was it was either, I don't remember which, but either the left or the right brain was
Mhm.
responsible for self-association, and the stroke was in one part of her brain, and so that killed her self-association. But really, there's a whole network in the brain that's responsible for self-association, and I only know this because in meditators, when they measure meditators, this network is extremely low
Hmm.
compared to everyone else. And so that's probably what was actually going on in her brain.
Mhm. I mean and it's that same area where the whole scientific understanding of like the ego is, because you can look at that same area. Because you can make the claim that the ego is just the act of connecting things and stringing things together. And it's that same network of I, and it's putting everything that it takes in. Because it's something absurd. I'm pretty sure every second we take in about 2 million things of information. And then we can only actually, what's the word? Sift through, understand?
Process.
Classify.
Process. We can only process about 40.
Yeah.
So there is something in the background going fucking rapid speed right now,
Yeah.
just picking out the things that it cares about.
I actually just checked out a very fascinating book about this. It was called Preconscious Processing.
Babies?
Uh,
Is
Sorry?
that what they're looking at? Babies?
No, at
Oh.
people and
Okay.
and the processes that determine what comes into our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And very
Oh.
briefly, the introduction was talking about how there are different categories of things that come to the forefront of our mind that we can think about. It could be something that is important, something that's new, something that makes no sense. But then at the same time, we also have some level of control of like, oh, I'm just not going to recognize that exists. I'm going to ignore it. Like, so it's not going to enter my consciousness almost at a conscious level. I'm choosing not to acknowledge it. And so there are a whole bunch of different like categories that go into this pre-conscious thought that we just can't see, and it's got to be immense. And one thing that was pointed out in just the introduction of this book was that in order for it to enter the consciousness, there has to be some sort of meaning there. Like, it has to mean something to the consciousness before it can even get to the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How can the meaning be derived without the consciousness? Because meaning is a very subjective thing. I think there's no way to really understand what meaning is without a subject. The objective world can't really comprehend that. But somehow, meaning is given to things before they enter a consciousness.
Yeah. So pre-consciously, meaning is given to these things.
Yeah.
When you're saying conscious, are you saying
self-conscious?
thoughts?
Us, me, whatever I am.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember what information they were talking about specifically?
Yeah.
Because, like, vision is weird.
Yeah.
Because it's actually just all these filters just to make us be able to see easier. And it was just evolution being able to, like, spot out animals or predators or, like, different colored things.
Is that the sight itself, or is that the classification within the brain of recognizing what something is, drawing the lines around things?
I don't know.
And
I'm speaking more vague.
Yeah.
Just like you see things.
Wouldn't they be one and the same? Because what you're talking about, that process is a matter of evolution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it is evolution. It's not magic. It is, or arguably, I guess you could go that route. Whatever.
Yeah.
But arguably, it's this evolutionary process that is understood what filters to use, and those filters are dependent on what it deems as important and what to take in before it gets to the conscious mind. But no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that goes back to my classic thing. I think I've talked about this experiment with both of you actually separately when they had the whole thing with and we've talked about this. You were talking about some other guy that you knew, Joe, and just like the red and pink, and they had people choose. This might be a weird way to explain the thought, but it's the same idea of how we make decisions before they actually get to our brain. And so they had these blue and pink cards, and they had people pick, and they picked the card, and they had some brain scanners on, and they see what areas would flare up. And there was the decision-making area that would flare up. Then they'd pick the card, and then they asked why. Then the rationalism part would kick in. So they only understood why they picked it until after it was picked. So they only thought of the reason that they picked it, or more created the reason to pick it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a roundabout way, but I think it's the same thing they're pointing at than what you just said.
Yeah, I believe actually...
There's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
You know, arguably everything's going on before it gets to us.
Yeah.
And then it's so simple, and it's like, oh yes, this is what I will say. This is what I will do.
I believe actually, interestingly enough, Hume, who was a philosopher in the 1800s or something like that, he essentially said he was an empiricist, believing that everything was derived from experience, not through rationality. And he criticized rationality, being like, "Oh, it happened after the fact. Like you can look back and be like, oh, that happened because of this, but that rationality was imposed on it after the fact, and so it's actually worthless. It just it might be useful as a way to understand connections in the world, but besides that, it can't gain anything new. It's all just past experience."
Yeah. Yeah, it was like Philosophy 101. It might have been Hume, actually. Yeah. I thought it was Haidt as a more recent one, where they show, like, 2 flowcharts, where you're presented with, like, a question, for example, and then you rationalize it, and then you make a decision, and then you get to your conclusion, and that's the traditional. And then the alternative would be you go to it, you make a decision, you rationalize it, and then it's this feedback loop of, like, constantly experiencing it after rationalizing it until you make a decision.
And what boggles my brain, because everything we're saying is pointing to that latter, right? That second one that you're saying. Yeah. But then that is all true, yet our minds are still changed. Like, as much as we resist change, there are definitely times in our life that, like, yep, okay, I'm wrong. But, like, what we're saying, I feel like, would create this loop that we would never be able to admit that we're ever wrong. So there's this threshold, it seems. Like, how I would view it is that we have our point that we believe in, and there's a threshold depending on how maybe arrogant or confident or cocky you are, whatever the measure is, and you have that threshold, and as long as it doesn't pass the threshold, then you can keep bringing it back to your experience.
What's this that passed the threshold? Is that, like, new experience?
So let's say
counteractive experience or something.
I believe I have a red shirt on, and I am. What color is it?
You got some red on.
A friend of ours. Put him on the recording. Put him on the podcast. Put it on speak.
Joseph?
Dawson?
Yo, where are you?
Hey, you're on Fools Having Fun with Jake, Joe, and Pete.
Hey guys, what's up?
Are we going to Confluence Park?
Oh,
You want to join our four-way?
Where are you right now?
We're in my room.
three-way.
Oh, why are you there when you could be at Confluence Park?
Do you not understand our intro? You're on Fools Having Fun with Jake, Joe, and Pete.
Wait for it one more time. You're on Fools Having Fun with Jake, Joe, and Pete.
Who's Pete?
That's me. I'm Pete.
That's Pete.
Hello, I'm Pete.
Hey, Pete, you want to go to Confluence Park?
We're doing a podcast called Fools Having Fun with Jake, Joe, and Pete.
Does that podcast take place in Confluence Park?
Definitely not.
Yeah, there's like a 5% chance.
Not much negotiation in this argument here.
Yeah.
Okay, so no Confluence Park?
I will, but later.
Oh. Okay, bye now.
We were immersed
Okay,
in
bye.
conversation.
Definitely were. Oh boy. Fuck. We were in something good.
Mm-hmm.
We were going. We were talking about decision making. Oh. Is that where we left off? Because I was saying it's odd how we can still change our minds.
Yes.
Oh, and then somebody
Yeah.
was I talking about threshold?
You were
Yeah.
talking about threshold. I was just gonna say that it's way more complex. Like looking at a flow chart dumbs it down way too much.
Yeah.
Like,
But
there's
nonetheless,
so many things.
nonetheless, I would say that the assumption, or at least the way that I picture it, is if we're not the ones making decisions, then it would seem that we would have, then it would seem that it'd be very hard for us to change our minds, or impossible. Like it is
Mhm.
hard, but like it definitely is possible, which just makes me think it's weird. Like if we're processing experience before we're experiencing it, then how can experience ever surprise us?
We're experiencing it.
Like if we're taking in
Okay.
information as an experience.
Yeah.
If we're already filtering it, then how can it shock us into revelating into something that we didn't expect, into changing into something we didn't expect?
I would just say our unconscious self experiences it before our conscious self experiences it. And so there's
I
like
don't think I think by definition our unconscious self doesn't experience it. That's the whole point.
I don't know about that. I might say that the unconscious self
Well-
is another self
Well,
that feeds into us.
yeah, no, I guess I would want to split up some terms because I definitely agree there's something intelligent in the background. I guess that would be the same thing we're talking about.
I have a theory, and this has like no basis in reality that I'm aware of, besides just that I've noticed that people have like different ways of experiencing reality. In that it's possible, I think that our brain, there's a lot of layers to it or something, and different layers or aspects of the self are manifest within like whatever's running the body essentially, and so each person might identify a different part of the brain. For instance, it's like that's me, and so maybe someone whose pre-conscious mind is running the show might think very differently than someone whose quote conscious mind. Like, what's the difference? Like, if someone's conscious of their unconscious, and that's what they are, and there's like another layer that just doesn't get used for whatever reason. I don't know. I've thought about that before, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I wonder if that's the case. Wouldn't that be? That's my fan fiction of reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a never ending. It's like an onion.
Yeah, it's like
You
at
just
a certain
keep
point,
going.
like maybe just your whole body is conscious, and that's what you are. You're just your body. Like, there's no distinction between you and the body. Or as we were talking before, like, oh, you point your arm. Well, that's not me. It's like maybe for some people that kind of is them. Of like, I'm just the system of my body versus I'm the brain itself, or I'm this part of the brain that connects with everything else, and that connection is the me or whatever.
Yeah. If I were to say like a state of flow, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like, when you were saying that, I'm thinking of you're either in a state of flow or you're consciously thinking. So you
can kind of give up that consciousness to a different part of you.
Yeah. The state of flow is kind of that pre-conscious person.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of always there. So
And you can definitely surrender it. And although you're not the one thinking, there is definitely something thinking. And we've already said this, and that is how you look at then like professional like pianists. they just go fucking wild. There's no way they're commanding. Okay, left
This
this
finger,
finger do
yeah.
this do. Like it's just
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Like they have no control. It's just happening. Like it's doing itself. And I would say that's for just about any of those like creations. If we're looking at music, art, probably writing to an extent, but writing can be weird. Maybe more poetic writing, not really academic writing. Just like these greats in things, and probably sports. Definitely sports, actually. Yeah, that's all. But people say it's muscle memory.
Muscle memory.
That's the
I think it's
rational
the
way
same
to explain
thing.
it. Yeah,
It's not really muscle memory. It's muscle memory.
right.
I'm actually curious as to how much of that muscle memory that we're talking about is like takes place in the brain, the muscle versus like the spinal cord. It's also that the muscle itself just knows. The spinal cord might know. The preconscious brain might know, and then it's like, oh, the conscious brain might know. So there's a lot of different layers to cut that. Of like, if I'm like, oftentimes we don't even think like, oh, I'm gonna pull this muscle. What it is almost everything we do is the preconscious muscle. I might think to myself, I'm going to pick up this can, and then I don't think to myself how I'm going to pick up the can. I don't tell each muscle to move in such a way. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's really weird when you just start breaking it down and you start to try to like
Control each muscle.
control each thing.
Yeah.
And you just can't. I remember I was really in my own head, whatever, and I was trying to take a single step.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't do it.
Uh-huh.
I literally couldn't do it. Because, you get up
You kind of have to relearn it.
because you
All
have,
these things.
you have to
Yeah.
keep remembering everything. Because as soon as I'm about to move, I like forgot, I wasn't aware of like my arm, the way it was being held or like,
Uh-huh.
and it's just like,
You're self-balancing even.
yes.
Yeah.
And there was just constantly something being forgotten, and then I was like, oh, I have to keep this in mind too. And I have to keep I tried to unautomate everything, and I just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, something's in there delegating all these tasks for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really do anything with your body without multiple things happening. Like taking a step, like your core has to tighten.
Mhm.
You have to shift
Right,
your
right,
arms,
right.
your glutes tighten up. Yeah.
Let's
It's
do
a
it.
weird one.
And then you do it so quick. How the hell can we
Pretty
catch
quick.
things?
Yeah,
Jeez,
I know,
that's
right?
a lot. You have to bring that in, like, oh my god.
Yeah, you're thinking about
You're
that,
thinking the
and you're thinking about
trajectory,
this.
the way that you're gonna cushion your hands that just falls in, and like, oh my god.
It is quite fascinating just how well the brain can learn things. Because like it wasn't that long ago. Because I think it's pretty well understood that something that separated humans from other animals was the ability to make tools, but then also to throw things. You can run and then just throw a spear or something at
Don't
an
have to
animal.
run anymore.
Exactly. We don't have to run it anymore. But
Wow.
like that was what, like
advantage.
2 million years ago maybe or something, and like the catching probably came after the throwing, because who was throwing it at
Yeah.
you, like if no one could throw, and so
Yeah.
just that accuracy.
Catching.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's so true, because we were definitely throwing before we were catching.
Yeah.
Eventually, one guy threw a spear and he was like, wait, Jimmy, go long. No, I'm not going to stab you. Just catch it.
They're throwing rocks first.
Probably.
Well, no, they must be able to, because it's like things must have fallen. I don't know. Maybe not.
You wanna
catch
get
per se, but-
coconuts? You knock
Yeah,
coconuts
I
off the tree
picture a
catching it?
coconut. Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe they were catching before
Maybe-
they were throwing.
Maybe I'm thinking too much about it. Yeah.
Well, it's all case by case, because that's the blunt truth. We try to generalize it.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I'm sure most were throwing before catching, but there must have been some anomalies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think the first
I like
thing
that
we
you
did.
pictured coconuts. That's exactly
Oh,
what I
yeah,
thought. It's
yeah.
the only thing that I ever pictured, like, in the wilderness, if, like, just a tropical supply of food. Just drop the coconuts.
I think the first
That's kinda
hunting
funny.
we did was like pelt things to death with
Yeah.
rocks.
Just as a team.
Yeah.
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 You get as many people as possible. And these were like apes or monkeys. They would
It's-
just get rocks.
It's crazy. Not have me turn into Joe Rogan for a second, but like, have you seen like chimpanzees just like tear something apart together?
Yeah.
Just imagine people just throwing rocks at something until it's dead, and then you go and eat it.
Holy
So-
shit.
But where's that image of just like a chimp ripping your arms off?
They could
Have
do
you
it.
seen those hairless chimps that are like way ripped, more ripped
Yeah.
than like the bodybuilders?
Yeah. You look
Goals
at
right
their
there.
face; they're so stern.
Goals. I want to look at chimpanzee when I grow up.
Oh my god! Jeez,
Chimpanzee.
fucking kill everything.
What happened to all that strength?
Went the brain.
Yeah, I guess so. We said we don't need that anymore.
Became like a dead weight on us. Like just like what why need to have that core like expenditure on all the
evolution
muscle.
is it's a need. It's a need. That's how it works. What you need, yeah, because we're constantly evolving. It's just our definition of what to evolve to is also changing.
Yeah, no matter how hard you work out, you can't even be as strong as like a child chimpanzee.
No, fuck you up in
So
any
sad.
arm wrestling match.
Like the strongest Arnold Schwarzenegger ever was is not as strong as like an adolescent chimpanzee. So there's no competition.
Wow.
I do wonder though, like it depends on I guess how you break up that strength. Like for instance, chimps I think have tremendous upper body strength, but like
Yeah.
if we're talking about Thor Bjornsson who just broke like 6 months
They
ago,
can't squat.
they can't squat or deadlift like
That's
at
true.
all because why would they need to pick up something that's like
Right.
1,000 kilos?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How would
even,
anything
like,
need
gorilla.
to? Other than us, because we're just bored. Like, what other things need to lift that much weight?
It's true.
Why are this is probably dumb, but I don't really truly question it. Why are apes and whatnot so goddamn strong? Like, what do they need the strength for? Like, I can understand you need to be strong, but what is the immense strength for? Like, that's a lot.
Trees, I think.
I think it
Yeah?
might just be like ripping things apart. Like if I just pull your arm
Ah.
off out of your socket,
That's
and there's like 6 of us, we just pull you apart.
But they don't really have any predators they have to fear, do they?
I don't think it's the fear thing. I think it's the hunting aspect. For instance, like they're not like a cat that can bite your neck.
Oh, I see.
and then
So
hold
it's just their weapons.
Yeah, so they're gonna
Just
grab your
raw
arm.
strength.
It's gonna make 6 people grab, not people, but chimpanzees grab your
Yeah,
arm and then just pull you apart, kind of like draw.
But
draw
I
a
don't
quarter.
think. But don't they're not carnivores.
they are.
Silverback
They'll eat
gorillas.
anything.
Let's look at silverback gorillas. I don't think they are.
They might not be. I don't know.
Chimpanzees I
Oh,
know are.
yeah.
They're fucking crazy. That makes sense.
Gorillas
But
are
silverback gorillas, the strongest in that category by
Yeah.
far. I'm pretty sure they're herbivores.
They eat leaves.
Yeah. So what the fuck are? And I don't think they have any
They
predators.
eat ants too, don't they? I don't know if that. If that
Oh, they
makes them
definitely
a-
eat insects. They
Yeah.
definitely eat insects.
That's like a carnivore, quote unquote. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's true. They are omnivores.
So what the hell's all that strength for? What are they doing?
maybe it's the emotional strength that comes comes with eating the insects.
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, I wonder if they needed it at one point and now it's simply kept
Like
for
residual.
residual, but then now maintained because of just dominance.
Maybe
You know, to just
I don't know like how much evolution works at maintaining things. Because
No, sorry. So I'm not saying it's just as passive maintain. I say so maybe there used to be something where they needed it.
Mhm.
That went away.
Yep.
And now the reason it's still maintained or it still occurs because now it's just a battle of dominance between themselves of what females
That's
they
possible.
get. Right. And so like since it used to be important
they're
within
more a social creature now.
Right. I don't know. That's
That's possible. When
crappy little idea.
when I think of evolution, I don't. Maybe the theory has moved on from where I'm at with it, but my understanding is that it's not so much of a constant process. Like it is always working, obviously, but it's very very slight over most periods of time. But then when a drastic change happens, it's punctuated and it changes very very rapidly. So, for instance, if gorillas needed strength 100 million years ago, and then that need disappeared, there might not be any reason for them to lose that strength. It just might stick around for 100 million years. It might diminish slightly over time just because it's not as useful. But
Yeah, if
That's
it doesn't
kinda-
hurt them, they'll just keep it.
Yeah. It's a need by basis. If you need to get and because it's just no, I definitely agree with that because they might have needed it and then it just stays because if it didn't hurt them. But I guess I would make the claim that having all that muscle must make them eat. They must require more nutrition, right?
Probably.
More calories.
but
But I guess if
there's-
they have no shortage, then it doesn't matter.
exactly.
And if they did go through a shortage, then the smaller and weaker
Mhm.
of them, would prevail.
Yeah.
Or maybe not because they are
Or maybe
social
they get
creatures.
fucked up.
They'll get fucked up.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So it is an
Maybe.
interesting question. I think it is that dynamics of the social aspect that really would push that forward.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, there's some crazy recording, or just people will follow groups of different animals. Pack of wolves,
Mhm.
chimpanzees, dolphins, and like chimpanzees in particular. Like, or I think it's for most monkeys, but like they'll stage year-long overthrows of power. Like they will literally there will be like a second command
Civil
who
War.
will like start spending more time with the females and helping them with the babies and get like the majority on their side and then just stage this coup and it's like so human like.
Yeah.
And then you got dolphins on the other side who are just fucking and laughing and talking to each other like who are nothing like us, just having a good time.
Oh, that's like bonobos.
But no, yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the animal. I was talking to somebody and I was trying to remember the opposite
The
side.
monkey that
of
fucks a
monkeys.
lot. Yeah.
The monkey, they just have big orgies and hang out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they do. I guess some of us do that.
Yeah. True.
A rare breed.
Yeah.
Wow.
But not many of us rip each other's arms off either, I guess. So
Mm-mm.
and kill each other. So what do you think? Do you think there's more murder or orgies in the world?
I think there's more orgies.
Human world?
In the human world.
More orgies? A lot of people die.
True.
Well, that's true.
But there's no law against
I don't know
against having an orgy.
There's
Let's say
definitely
let's
no
not
law.
count wars. I'm just saying murder.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, no
Like-
wars, no wars.
Like taking out nukes is like
War, I think,
yeah.
Yeah.
War, I think it's fair to say more deaths.
Okay.
But yeah, murder, illegal murder as opposed to orgies.
What about legal murder?
Are orgies illegal? They're
Like not in the
illegal.
states, but
They're
like
just
maybe in
extremely
like Iran. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely don't allow it over there.
Unless you're like a prince, it's like Saudi Arabia. Like you, like if you're a prince.
Yeah,
it's okay.
you're above the rules.
Yeah.
I would
You are
assume
rules.
that more people.
Whatever you say goes.
There's got to be more orgies, but there's more murderers. Because you can orgy a lot.
That's probably true. Yeah,
you can
you're like,
orgy a lot,
have,
but
like-
you can really only murder a couple
Ah.
times.
before you get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely more orgies than murdered. You only get murdered once.
people who have orgies have them every single day, but a murder maybe once a week.
Uh-huh.
So how many orgiers compared murderers are there?
10 to 1 is my. Is what I
10
say.
to 1.
That's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I don't know.
For
Maybe they're
every
more
serial-
common. We gotta go to California and see what's popping over
Gotta
there.
count them.
Yeah.
for every serial killer, 10 people that have an orgy every day. That's pretty fair.
There are also like these large orgies, right? So it's like thousands of people just get together.
Oh,
that really,
God.
Thousands?
Yeah.
No.
yeah.
1,000 people cannot have
Come on.
an orgy.
It's not like
What space can
I know, right?
1,000 naked people?
I think I saw it on like a Guinness World Record of something.
Oh,
Of
man.
like, oh, we filled up this football stadium. We all had sex. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So
Can you imagine being there?
You do the
No,
math on
okay.
that one.
What do you do after
You
you
have sex.
jizz after like a couple minutes?
You're
You're like, oh, sorry guys, gotta go. Just sit there, wait 20 minutes, you know?
They walk to the other side of the stadium,
Yeah.
find
Run
someone
it off.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah, run it off,
To get
reinvigorate
horny again.
themselves.
Everyone just takes, what is that, Viagra? Everyone takes some
Yeah.
Viagra before and just goes to Pound Town.
I mean, half of them are on MDMA or something
That's
too.
true,
Like,
actually.
they're
I
on
forget.
stuff.
Nobody's, probably not many people are sober on those things. Orgies. Would you do it in your life? An orgy?
No.
What? That was so quick.
Yeah.
Didn't even pretend like you were gonna.
I'm not gonna think about it. I've already thought about it. It does not interest me at all.
At all.
At all. I'm not. I guess I'm not like a very sexual person in the first place.
I mean, don't get
it's
me
one
wrong.
thing
I
not for
probably
me.
don't want to have an orgy either, but like maybe I don't know. It's just a crazy experience. What the hell happens? I just want to. Can I just like watch it? Like maybe join in if I want.
There's Pornhub for that if you want to watch it.
Oh, that's true, but that's weird. That goes
that's
into the
weird.
deep. That goes into the dark side of.
What if you're just
Porn.
watching it though? Is that weirder is that just watching it on Pornhub? Is that
Yeah,
weird?
bringing my journal will probably be a little weird for an orgy. Just sitting there in the corner.
Let me write it down.
Yeah,
You're rewriting 50 Shades of Grey
yeah.
as you're
The
sitting there.
inspiration.
How about you, Joe?
I wouldn't dismiss
You're
it.
dismissed. it?
I mean,
You're more
I have-
open-minded than I.
I mean, it wouldn't be like some random person coming up to me and like, let's have an
Mm.
orgy.
So it could be like us three. Three-way.
Probably not. Probably not. Like,
That's a good. What defines an orgy?
Like-
how many people are we at? Is
Yeah.
it like 5 plus? Because there's a 3-way, 4-way, and then I feel like I never hear
yeah,
past that.
5 ways. Sure. Let's say 5 people.
That's the orgy
Right.
line.
Yeah. I mean, what if you have a girlfriend in like 2 or 3 years and you're in like this cult and the spiritual center, and it's like, yeah, 3 of my friends also want to have sex with us. Like, but you also know them. I don't know. Actually, yeah.
I guess
I
that's
get
the-
uncomfortable as it is. I don't know how that situation would go down.
I guess
Actually,
that's the next follow-up question. Would you be more or less prone to do it if it's people you know?
Oh, my follow-up question, if you don't mind interjecting so I can get this out there,
Yeah.
is what ratio of men to female or men to women would you guys be comfortable with in this
Yeah,
orgy?
I would like more females.
Uh huh.
3 to 2. 3 to 2, I might consider.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the majority's got to be for female. For
Yeah.
But
I mean,
maybe we get a little
3
funky.
guys
I don't know
and
what
2
I,
Get a little
girls.
fuck there.
I don't fucking know.
I mean, it also
I've
depends
never
on
really
if.
tested my heterosexuality.
I mean, it also depends on if there's 3 guys, 2 guys and you. If the 2 guys are just in the corner the entire time,
That doesn't count then.
and then they leave you alone.
and then you swap off.
Yeah.
Tag
yeah.
team.
They just
Yeah.
dab each other up.
So
Tag
you
team,
have a
yeah.
threesome, but for them it's a foursome.
Because they're
So
watching.
there's, yeah. Well, they take the female one at a time.
It seems like
See,
I
you got
don't
a
know.
plan here.
This is a very weird.
It's a
It's a weird situation to break down. It's like, okay, for 20 minutes they're over there, I'm over here, and then we switch a little bit, and then we rotate. It's like tag team wrestling on steroids.
Mm.
Like, yeah,
Wow. All right. Well, maybe I'll do it then.
you get caught in a weird
How
spot.
do you
with
get
that
invited
one.
to an orgy? Do you just
I don't know.
ask around? Go
I'll
to
put up a Facebook post.
Facebook Market.
Facebook Marketplace. $5 entry fee to my orgy. Who's up? $5 is for MDMA and alcohol.
Jeez. Yeah, that would be interesting. Let's like post something for our house and see who shows up one Friday
Oh my
night.
god.
I don't know. Would that be legal though? Like, would that be like some form of like prostitution
Probably.
or something? That some
We can't involve
government
money.
would
Well, you can't advertise MDMA,
Uh-huh.
and you can't advertise alcohol to minors.
But
just say just have it.
you can get
if
rid
you're
of
if you're
those
under
just
the age of 21, look away.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
I don't know. There's what you could use like some like you can go on Urban Dictionary and come up with some weird word,
Uh-huh.
like slang word for orgy or something. That's like I don't know,
I assume orgy's already a slang for something.
like
It's
whale
something-
party.
I don't know.
Oh,
Whale party.
orgy.
Isn't it like
I don't.
does it stand for something? It sounds like it's cut off.
Yeah,
It
there
does
definitely.
sound like
I
it's
feel
cut
like there's got to be
Is it
more
like
going on.
organizational sex?
Mm.
Some scientific term?
Probably.
I think
That's
of
a good guess.
orgasm.
Orgasmal sex. Orgasm.
Many
Hopefully that's normal
orgasms.
sex.
Yeah.
Orgasmal
Orgy.
sex.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wait, so we have to go back to my question. People
Yes.
you know or
How
don't
do you-
know?
People we know or don't know.
Do you want to possibly ruin some friendships or just fuck some random people? That's the question.
I think it for me it would have to be someone that I do know because
Yeah.
like I mentioned I'm not very sexual and that only gets like turned on when I get to know someone.
Right.
So
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about that.
Well, like
Personality.
one person you know,
yeah,
or you would have to know everyone there.
I think I'd have to know everyone there,
Everyone
Everyone.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
which would mean we'll just ruin some friendships
Yeah.
For the greater good.
for the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd be in between that. I'd want to know somebody.
So you'll know half the people.
Yeah, I need to know at least one other person so we can be like, okay, we're doing this. Like, okay. And then the rest, whatever, as long as they're attractive, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree
And
with
like
that.
respectful.
Yeah. I need something to get me into that situation, and then everyone else, it's probably better that I don't know them.
Music successful with a friend. That's what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You start tripping balls, and next thing you know, you're in a tent, and things are getting wild.
Yeah, we go to Burning Man, or what's the other one? There are other ones where they do that. That's like the accepted thing that happens.
Yeah. Good God. Another world.
Not in a COVID world.
No. Yeah. That's sad.
Mhm.
One day we'll be able to have our orgy.
I mean, there's nothing stopping us.
I was going to say the same thing, but I didn't say it.
Yeah, this isn't. I mean, we don't really live in a COVID world, but Burning Man lives in a COVID world.
Yeah. Burning Man.
Sort of own Burning Man over here. Blackjack and hookers.
That's just Las Vegas.
What's the deal with Vegas? Can people go in the casinos?
What
Is
do you
that
mean?
still popping?
Oh, right now? Oh, it's very popping
I
right
think so.
now.
I really want to go to Vegas.
I think there's just too much money for
Winter
them to
break.
ever turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Winter break, you said? You want to Vegas?
What else are we gonna do? Got 3 months. Are you in the same boat with grad school and all? Or
I do have the 3 months, but yeah, I'm probably just gonna not do anything for 3 months because I'm doing so much right now.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
Yeah.
You'll be busy, I'm sure. Probably take your next exam or something.
that's happening on December 1st. So
Oh,
before
yeah.
before the break.
Oh.
Big moments.
So pre-finals. You get that.
Well, it's kind of weird. I think I only have one final, and then like I have like a take home project.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the final that I'm taking, it's finance, and the test I'm taking is investment and financial management.
Mhm.
So I'm like, literally, the course I'm taking is just the second half of the test I'll be taking.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I'll know it by then.
So what's the deal? You went for your bachelor's in actuarial science.
I can give you the whole rundown that I give all the interviewers of
Go
listen
for
to my
it.
sob story.
Do it.
So I grew up in a very religious family, and it was
Mhm.
a military family. We moved all around the world. So in high school, I was given two options for college that was in my consciousness: BYU, which is the Mormon school out in Provo, Utah, and West Point, which is in New York, and it's the military school. Become an officer,
Yeah.
serve your country, maybe die for 'em.
Mhm.
I think fairly. I've already moved around the world. It feels like I've been in the Army for 20 years. Let's go to BYU. And I went there, and I was doing fine, and then depression hit me like a ton of bricks, and I hated it. I didn't get out of bed for school, didn't do any of the work, so grades started to suffer, and I decided, you know what, let's take a step back. I went and worked for a semester or two, and then came to my parents' place, got a treatment, TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, puts magnets in your brain, and I watched The Walking Dead for like 2 times a week for like 6 weeks, and they were like, okay, you're good. And I was like, I don't feel different.
Why The Walking Dead though? Is that
Because
just part of it.
It was just like there was like Netflix, and they're like, you're gonna have to sit there for like an hour with it on your
Okay.
brain, and it would go.
Oh.
It was like having a MRI machine on.
Yeah.
Go.
So they didn't say you have to watch
No.
The Walking Dead.
You have to watch.
Okay.
No, I'm just interested in it.
Yeah.
In the treatment.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only way to cure your depression is to watch the zombies.
Okay.
No, yeah, that's what I did for 6 weeks though.
So you went to BYU when you were 18, like right after high school.
Yeah, I'm glad because I did have one other option actually. I didn't mention. I could have gone on a mission for the church for 2 years, somewhere that I
Yes.
didn't know.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I was depressed and I didn't like BYU was because I kind of realized that I didn't believe in any of the BS that was being told to me, and I found out that the school was going to try to either force me to go to church every week or kick me out of school, destroy my records,
Mhm.
and evict me from my housing, which would kind of make it hard for me to live anywhere else and go to
Okay.
school anywhere else.
Yeah.
So once I realized that, I kind of was like, let's transfer as fast as possible, get my records somewhere else. I can go to school there,
Mhm.
it'll be fine. And so went to Binghamton after I got the treatment. Wasn't sure if it was working, and I decided to just continue with mathematics. At the time, I wasn't sure if something else happened that I wasn't good at math anymore. It was just too high level, and that's why I wasn't doing well in my classes. So I was
Mhm.
opening up my range of options, looking at psychology, economics, philosophy, just anything. I'm like, maybe let's major in something else.
Okay.
After doing math for a bit, I realized that I was kind of on the actual path already in my mind because a therapist mentioned, hey, here's this personality test. Personality test said, hey, be an actuary. So I was like, okay, I'll do the math major and I'll take the exams.
Okay.
When I was taking probability theory and financial mathematics, everyone in my class was in the actuarial program, and they're like, we gotta take these tests. And I'm like, I guess I should be taking these tests.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I should probably switch majors too. So I switched majors and then took my first test in the summer before my senior year, second test in the winter before during my senior year. Third test I was ready for the day before on when COVID hit, and then it got canceled,
Okay.
which sucks. I had spent like 3 months studying for it, and then that's coming around again. in
You have to
December.
take tests all the way until after college, though, right?
Yeah, these are technically like postgraduate exams.
Okay.
Most people take the first two while they're in college, I think, or at least one.
Okay.
And then like to take your third or fourth, that's kind of extraordinary because there are different paths for actuaries to take. You can either go with a life and health path or a casualty path, say like car insurance, house insurance, these kind of things.
Okay.
And they have different exams for those. So after your third exam, you don't really want to start taking other exams unless you know that's the path you're going to take, because then they're like $350 a piece or something, which is a bit expensive. And then the study tools are also like $350 a piece, so it's like $700
You have to
for an
pick and
exam.
choose.
Yeah,
You
so
also have to study for like 2 months.
most people, yeah. I'm lucky when it comes to exams. I'm pretty good at them, so it'll be like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, and the exams are difficult to pass. Like I think the first two have like a 40%, 50% pass rate. So a lot of people kind of flunk out of it. I think because if I were to take it in my sophomore year and I was like, oh, I'm so good at math, I don't need to study for anything, I wouldn't have passed it.
Yeah.
But once I came back and was like a good student, I'm like, I'm going to sit down for 2 weeks, 8 to 10 hours a day for each of these weeks. Just review this material because I've already taken a class on it. So it's kind of I'm like, this is my full-time job. I have to pass this test. Pass the test, and I'm good to go. But yeah, so that's the exams. And then there are, I think, a total of 6 to become an ASA, which is for the SOA program or the life and health, and then I think there's 5 exams to become an actuary for the casualty side. And then once you're an actuary, you can then take, I think it's like 5 to 7 more exams to get a different acknowledgement as a fellowship of whatever society that is. And that's like the peak of the peak. You're like, ooh, like everyone wants to hire you, and you're
They'll
very
give
happy
you pay raises
as you take exams.
Yeah. Okay. So how old were you when you came to BU then?
Oh, that's a good question. I was 21 or 21.
Okay.
Yeah, this was my 4th year here. So.
Nice. So you're 24 or 5 now then?
Yeah, I'm turning 25 in January. I'm a kaboomer.
Okay. A kaboomer.
It's kind of funny though. All my teammates, they're like, okay, we're gonna accept this Google Doc, and I'm like, I still don't know how Google Docs work.
Oh God.
I'm a little behind. In
Okay.
other regards, like I can like program and such, but like when it comes to like, they're like, oh, we set up a Google Drive, and I'm like, I don't know how to make a Google Doc in a Google Drive. I know how to like change it when I pull it up. It's like Word, but
Just general, just things that people know.
yeah. So
Okay.
I was helping someone at my library job today, and he was some doctor. He's like 56 years old. And he's like, how do I search this like on your website? And it's like, oh, you just type it in, and that's me, but for like Google Docs.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It gets weird.
just
Especially
think in
when-
like 20 years, like there's gonna be some new fangled technology, and we're all gonna be like, damn kids.
I don't even
That's
want
just
to
me
know.
already, though. I'm already in that space.
It's a weird spot. Because when you started, a lot of this was completely different.
Yeah, actually, something that surprised me was the culture of college had shifted dramatically from when I entered college and when I got back to Binghamton. Students don't talk to professors anymore. I don't know what happened. When I got to school in like 2014, there was a lot of interaction in class. And now, like, in all my classes, dead silent. And I'm like, is this just a school? But I was talking to my dad, who's a professor. I was talking to other professors, and they're like, yeah, something happened. No one talks. And I'm like, no one comes to the office hours. And I'm like, this is very strange. Maybe it's because like this new generation is used to having access to the internet. Like throughout school, it's like, oh, I don't know, I'll just Google it, and you can find it quickly enough.
Mhm.
But I started to go to professors like a lot more often, and I'm like, these people like they know it's not going to be on the test. I'm like, why aren't people using this? I'll talk to a friend and I'll tell them as a tutor. I'm like, talk to your professor. Go to the office hours. They know what's going to be on the test. They're going to tell you it's on the test. They want you to succeed.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know.
When I do go to office hours, I am shocked at how happy they are that I'm there.
Very true.
Because I expect that all these people are struggling in this course. How do they not go to office hours all the time?
I think that some part of it is kind of like a feeling of they're admitting defeat to the professor. Like, oh, the professor expects me to know this for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you're in the class to learn it, so they don't expect you to know it. If you don't know it, go to them and ask for help. So, but I think I have that mentality sometimes, like, oh, like the professor just taught this in class, I still don't get it, but it's on me to get it. It's like, not really, especially if the professor doesn't teach it well. It's like it's kind of on them in that case. And I have had some professors during the COVID times where I keep telling myself, like, maybe they're a great professor in person, just over this Zoom, it's
they
like
come off.
It's difficult. And like I mentioned, I'm a tutor, so I empathize with them a little more because last semester, whenever I had a tutoring session, people would show up, no screens were on, everyone's muted, and I'm kind of just doing a problem to myself. And I'm like, does this make sense? Where are we at? Who understands what? I can't see your faces. Like, what's going on? And it's difficult to teach that way.
I couldn't imagine doing group tutoring.
That's the worst.
One-on-one tutoring is hard enough because you'll just see, like, they'll either just not show up, not talk to you, or just not listen. And it's like, how...
You get paid either way.
Yeah, that's what it became, is like, I guess I'm getting paid either way. I'm going to give them everything they need to do it and try to help them. But
I have a fascinating story about giving students what they need, and it's up to them. My first year tutoring here, I had a student who I was in classes with her as well, and she came to my tutoring session one time, and then I think we exchanged phone numbers or something because we were in the same class, and so we studied for this probability class together.
Yeah.
And then she was coming to my tutoring for a different class. At the end of the semester, she messaged me and said that it's because of me that she failed both of her classes. The one I was tutoring her and the one that I was in with her.
Oh my god.
And I was like, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not my responsibility to do well on the test for you.
Yeah.
I'm a tool that you can use, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving you permission to use me.
Yeah,
And that happened.
yeah. And I'm like, I think there are other tutors for this class. Go to them, like, please. But I still don't know why. It was my fault that she failed the probability class that I wasn't tutoring her in. We studied together for one test.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, it's annoying.
She's my favorite person in the world.
Probably.
She'll start to get me fired later.
Wow.
Yeah. This is when I was doing these interviews and stuff that I'm going through. I mentioned one of the interviewers asked, like, so like, tell me about a person that you had to work with that like you disliked. I'm like, I don't really dislike anyone. I'm like, oh, this person I dislike.
Yikes.
She approached me during a tutoring session. This is before COVID. Approached me during a tutoring session. Not me, but the students I was tutoring. Pointed at me, telling the students not addressing me, but being like, he is the worst tutor ever. He is the reason I failed my classes. And then she walked away, and I kind of like laughed it off. I'm like, I don't know if they really like believed her, because this is kind of like a out of this world like experience, like super like aggressive. Like she's gonna walk up, and I'm like, maybe they took it off as like a joke of like, oh, he's actually pretty good, and she's just messing around. She like, did a lap and then came back and was like, no, really. He's the worst tutor ever. I'm like, go away.
Backwitch.
Yeah, I know.
That's unfathomable.
Yeah, and I contacted some people that help, and they're like, if it ever happens again, we'll kick her out. She'll never be able to come back to this tutoring. But I'm like, thank you, because this is like, it's okay if she wants to like bad talk me, but to the students I'm trying to help, it's like that's gonna make them like second guess, like, oh, is he teaching me? Like, it's gonna hinder them as well. I'm like,
if they believe you're a bad tutor, you're gonna be a bad tutor.
Yeah. So I love that story. It's my one hardship in life.
Where are you doing these interviews for?
A whole bunch of companies.
So you're looking for jobs.
Internships right now, because just for the summer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but
so you're doing an MBA, so it's gonna be 2 years.
2 years, correct.
Okay.
I missed out on the 1 year process online. They're like, oh, you could do the 1 year thing if you have experience in statistics and economics. I'm like, actuary, I did those things. And then I applied for the 1 year program, and I got accepted. Later, I found out I didn't get accepted to the 1 year program. I got accepted to the 2 year program. So they kind of pulled a fastball on me a little bit. But I almost convinced them. I feel like, because like I mentioned, I'm taking a finance course, and I'm like, I've already taken this class, and I'm taking an accounting course, and I told them I've already taken this class, and it's been all repeat so far, which we're like 2/3 of the way through the semester almost. And if I didn't have to take those classes, I think I could have done it in 3 semesters, which would have been like a year, because they do 3 semesters for the 1 year program. And I was fighting with them, and they said no, and I was like, they just want my money. They want to rob me.
They do. Yeah.
Well, they make you do like a summer semester for the MBA, right?
They make you do the summer semester for the 1 year program.
Okay. But you don't have access to that.
Because I applied I think I applied on like May 28th or something, and so the summer program was starting like 2 days after I applied, so there's no way I'm getting into that.
Oh.
So that was the miscommunication that I encountered. And I'm so grateful to like be at the MBA program, because it's like super enriching and kind of diversifying my own experience of like really working on the soft skills that I think were lacking in my previous education. So
is that like the other courses you have to take?
Yeah, the other courses I'm taking, like, for instance, are an organizational behavior class, which is kind of how structures of people should be organized for different goals that we have in mind.
Okay.
How these are good or bad, how they make people feel, how they may motivate people, how you should be a leader, these kind of things. I have another class, business communications, which is like a speech class essentially. Also, like emails to other people, creating memos. Pretty easy. And the last one I'm taking is a replacement for a statistics course that I didn't have to take. I decided to take a machine learning course, which is kind of supplementary to building off of what I've already had. That one's the fun one.
Do they talk about layers in that? Because when you were talking about the brain layers before, I'm like,
I didn't actually make that connection. We haven't talked about layers too much. We're not focusing on like neural networks, but she covered it at the beginning of like, here's the different kinds, like neural networks do this. Very briefly, but we're mostly working on like supervised learning and unsupervised learning rather than like deep learning.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking a deep learning class, and we're starting to really get into the layers. And yeah, like when you were saying layers, is just
There you go.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about machine learning, the more I'm like, this is probably how we learn.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like maybe like every form of machine learning, like the different kinds we have, like supervised, unsupervised, and then like deep learning and such. It's like we probably just put them all together, and then that's the human brain essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of learn from ourselves on how we learn, and we're like, let's make a computer do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not very good at it though. Like when it comes to especially like statistical stuff, like we have so many biases and.
Yeah, programming it. I mean, most people that are doing it really don't have any idea.
Mhm.
Because they give a lot of history in the course I'm taking too, of like how these people do it. It's like we just discovered that this change does this. And I'm like, oh, you guys just learned this.
Like 2 years ago, yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
We're
It is fascinating though. I think like the first time machine learning like that name was coined was like in the 50s. So it's like we've been working
Yeah.
on this for a long time with like someone.
it was
like
like
checkers.
World War II.
Yeah. And like they had to like use punch cards to like tell the computer like what the next checker move was. Like imagine training a computer like or like nowadays like we just like put the computer on in the background for like 8 hours to train it.
Someone
Imagine putting it
hating
wrong.
life,
Yeah, I know, right?
just going through them all. Jesus.
I've heard so many stories like professors talking about the punch cards.
Uh-huh.
Like everything from they would have hundreds of these punch cards stacked and it would just be a mess because they were free.
Oh,
It'd be a mess in the room. And then they started charging for it. And like people were religiously collecting the cards then because you'd pay for it.
Yeah.
But even just like, we'll talk about stories like if you're a CS student back then,
Mhm.
you're going to your final or submitting your project and it's like this stack
Oh,
of cards. And then you drop it.
Oh no.
And you're in the middle of the campus just with these cards.
Can you
have to
not
pick them
can
up?
you not just like add another punch to it and have like a ring in it?
Well, apparently, like they would have some way to index them, and that's all they said. But that would make sense. You'd have like a little ring.
Yeah, one more punch.
Yeah, one more punch. That's all you need. You do like an extra white space at the end of every line,
Yeah.
and that's your punch.
Wow. And how long ago?
This would have been like 50s to 70s, right? Probably.
No, because a lot of my professors, it could be 30 years ago.
Really?
Like
in the
up
90s?
until the 90s.
Really?
Yeah. Because like IBM, like we could look it up, but it was like the first mainstream. Like when we went to the moon, it was like going into the 70s, and they were still definitely just punch cards.
Yeah.
And that was when it was new.
Yeah.
Like they had these new computers. Maybe it was just the 80s then. Some of the professors talk about like it's pretty recent too. But
Some of the professors are kind of old.
yeah. Who knows? Maybe the universities didn't have the budgets for nice computers either.
Maybe
They just kept them.
that's possible.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
you never thought about that before about like people don't talk to the professors anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've only really like spoken to grad TAs.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I never think to go to office hours, honestly. Right?
You're a part of the problem. No.
I'm part of the issue.
Yeah.
I will talk in my social classes. I'll never talk in my math classes. And yeah, I do not think to go to office hours ever.
Hmm.
Unless if I have a real big impending problem that I'm like, okay, fuck. You know?
I kind of went religiously freshman year
Mhm.
just to do homeworks.
Mm.
Like Chem 111, I would go to office hours, and really what office hours was, there were 4 TAs in a room and just 20 students just sitting on their laptops doing the homework. And then for like intro physics, it would be the TA and like 3 or 4 kids all sitting around a table.
Mhm.
And like we're just doing the homework with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he would give like hints, and like if we really weren't doing it, he would like make us work harder to do it.
How do you make you work harder? Yeah, it's a whip.
Just like it would.
Yeah, he's got a whip.
Wait, hold on. No, I mean he would like give you some very subtle hint,
Uh-huh.
and then if you asked him like 3 or 4 times again,
Mhm.
then he would like give a more thorough explanation.
Gotcha.
And then sometimes you would have another grad student in the room, and they wanted to show off, and so they go on the blackboard and they do this whole elaborate problem, and sometimes that would confuse you more than the weird hints.
Well, otherwise it would be
Yeah.
impressive.
It was,
true.
yeah. They needed to make it elaborate. But yeah, office hours. After that, it would just be like real big issues with like programming assignments.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because what have I gone to? I've gone to 2 office hours this semester. One was today, and it was for 10 minutes just to show him my code. And I knew I was doing something very wrong, but I could not pick it out for the life of me. And I just explained it to him for a little bit, and he's like, "You're missing this.
You're missing a semicolon."
That's
what it always was for me.
No, this was like I was doing it a completely different way because we did it an original way, and then he's like, "All right, throw that out. This is the way you really need to do it, and it works a lot better." And I was still using the old way because
Punch cards.
Yeah, I was using punch cards when really they were using like a whole Google data center to do it.
Gotcha.
So now I have to do that. The other time was because I got a 60 on a homework, and I'm like, wow, this is gonna kill my grade. So the next homework, I went to office hours, and he just gave me all the answers.
There you go.
Like I did the first three out of 4 questions, and he's like, this is right, this is right, this is what you're doing wrong here. He was also, it hit me, like where I went to his office hours, and like, he is so happy that I'm here right now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this. Because never before I went to office hours, like, were they this happy that I was there. He was also like a grad TA, so it's a difference.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, I would like just go to office hours to talk to this TA for like 2 or 3 hours every day.
Cute.
It was bizarre. It was bizarre.
When your TA is your only friend.
That was sophomore year. Sophomore fall year. Yep. This was when I was taking micro theory. It started as I have no idea what's going on and what this Lagrange is. And I still didn't know what a Lagrange was after taking this class. But at least I was able to do the homeworks and do well in the class.
Lagrange. That just triggered me. Was that Calc 3? Calc 2?
I didn't take Calc 3.
Lagrange.
It might have been Calc 3.
That might have been.
Gotcha.
But
Calc 3.
yeah.
I did not
That's where we met.
That was the origin story.
I thought you were about to say that was the orgy.
Origin.
Going full circle on this.
Original origin.
Yeah, it was the original orgy. Our whole class. That's how we learned it. No.
Yeah. Fuck that class. That was a very sobering moment for me. That was the first class in my life that I had to actually try for.
Same, actually. That was,
really?
Yeah. That well, because I had taken Calc 3 at
Wasn't
BYU.
that your third time taking
That was my third time taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes way. Yes
Yeah.
way. So that's what I meant when I'm like, I don't know if math's for me. Like going in at time 1, time 2. Like the first time I took it, I think it was during a summer semester, and at BYU they have very short summer semesters. So it was like they try to fit like 2 semesters or something into one summer. So it was like 4 weeks or something. It was just like boom, boom, boom. And when I was in high school, I took AP Calculus. It was AB, and then all my friends were like, "You're so brilliant at math. Why don't you take the BC test?" And I took the BC test without taking the class, and I got a 5 on it. I was the only person in the history of the school to get a 5 on it, and so I skipped Calc 2. But
you got a 5 on BC?
I did.
How did you know infinite series from AB?
I'm Galaxy Brain, I guess. I don't know. Like all I remember during that test of things that I didn't remember or didn't know was when it said, "Oh, this is in radials," and I'm like, I don't know, I've never heard this word before. So I just looked at my calculator and said, "Oh, I can change it to radial," and I just did that, and then I guess I got those answers right, or enough of the AB answers to get a 5, because they said usually if you get 100% of the AB questions right on the BC test, you can still get a 5. So that might have happened too.
Okay.
Because I was very good. I had 123% at the end of the year for that class.
Okay.
Because she gets so much bonus credit.
Yeah, I forgot high school used to get bonus.
So much bonus.
Yeah.
So much bonus.
123%.
123%.
Could you imagine?
I didn't have 123% at the end because I didn't show up for the final, which was 25% of my grade.
Wow. She let
What did that bring
fly.
you down to? Like a 97?
98, yeah.
Okay,
98.
yeah.
So
you're okay.
that was fine. I was like, there's literally no point.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was fun.
That's pretty great.
But because I didn't take Calc 2, when I got to Calc 3, there were topics that arose in Calc 2 that I was just either able to like figure, because I'm good at taking tests, like I said. So when I took BC, I could like, oh, it's not that, it's not that. Oh, if my calculator gives me a number that's pretty close to this, so we'll work with that. And then choose that. Maybe it's the right answer. Maybe it's not. I guess I'll never know in going forward, but that was my assumption. And so getting into Calc 3 the first time, the professor, he had an accent, and it was hard for me to understand it, and then also not knowing Calc 2. So if he said a word from Calc 2, I'd be like, what was that? Do I know that word? Is that something that should be ringing the bell, or do I just not understand? Like what's going on here? And so that didn't work out well. And then I took it again. So I think the first time I got a D. Second time I got like a C minus, C plus, something like that. But I went back into it being like I think I technically had a high enough grade in order to just never do it again. But I'm like, if I'm going to continue doing math,
You wouldn't need it.
I need to know Calc 3. Because like with probability, Calc 3 was a prerequisite. So I'm like, anything that Calc's a prerequisite for, I need to know this. And so I took it again. And that third time I was like, oh, it makes sense. Everything just snapped into place.
Yeah.
And it was because I was like reading the textbook. I'm like talking to the professor and stuff. All the things that students don't do, but
You spend some more time on it.
Yeah.
That's what finally got me to pass that class.
Really?
Because in the beginning, I was eating ass. I got a 12 on the first test. A 12
12.
out of 100. I didn't study for it. I didn't have to study for tests.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. And I got a 12, and I was like, oh. I don't know if you remember, but I was able to retake the test because I'm a
I
little
think I
slimy
do remember
bastard.
that.
Yeah, what I did, I'm such a fucking twat sometimes. I remember we were taking that test, answered the first question, looked at it. Okay, I don't know how to do second. Okay, fine, whatever. I'll do the second later. Look at the third. Oh, I have no idea. Oh, I have no idea. Oh, no. Went through the whole thing. I was like, oh my God. I was sitting there. I'm like, I have no idea how to do any other question. And I'm sitting there. I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
oh.
all right. I got up, left. I talked to my mom. I was gonna leave. I was like, I need to drop this class. She's like, you're not dropping this class. I'm like, fuck. And so then I thought about it for a sec. And so then later that day, I emailed the professor like, hi, professor, blah, blah. Like, I'm so sorry I had to leave the class today because I've been really sick. I had to
Nice.
leave.
There you go.
I've been puking. And I was sick. But like I wasn't that sick.
Uh-huh.
It was a stretch a lot. And then so yeah, and then I lied and I was just like, yeah, I was puking and had to leave, blah, blah. I like, oh, like, could I please like retake the test? And he was like, sure. And so yeah, but even after studying my ass off, I still got a 60, which was probably fine. I think
It's better than a 12.
That was better than a 12. Yeah.
That is... It's more than a 5 times increase.
Yeah. But yeah, that test, and so yeah, and so what finally made it start clicking was I just was like, okay, I'm sucking, and I just started reading the textbook, and I was like, wow, it makes a lot of sense now. Yeah.
Did we ever study together for that class?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It was the very beginning of our friend. Do you remember the first time we tried to hang out? I think that's hilarious.
Were we super awkward?
Well, no, we didn't hang out.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do remember that. We set something up. We're like, hey, let's meet at the
We were talking,
marketplace.
and then it was like, okay, we were in Union. We're like, all right, I'm gonna get food. You're like, okay, I'm gonna get food.
And we
We're
just
here.
couldn't find each other.
And then we couldn't find each other, and I was like, well, I guess he left me.
And then
Oh my
I was
God.
like, well, he left me, and we just went different ways. I do
And then
remember
the
that.
next day in class, we're like, so should we try again?
I think we had to change phone number that time just in
Yeah.
case because we lost each other.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Yeah,
That was funny.
I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot
Yeah. Could you imagine if you guys just ignored each other
for the rest of
for
the
the rest of
semester.
the semester?
Yeah.
You
that
both
was,
thought he just ditched me?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
That's when you had your cane. Those
Yeah,
were good days.
yeah. Good old days.
Okay.
When I was in the 7th grade, I got hit in the knee with a hockey stick when we were playing hockey, and my knee popped out, and it was like not out of my body, but like out of the right place.
Yeah.
It went. It was like. Let me show you actually, because it sucks to be the podcast listeners. They don't get the. If you're watching on YouTube, no,
We can get a nice picture. Yeah.
but my kneecap, instead of going out, most people's go out. Mine got hit and it went up and in.
Okay.
So that was like a super bad one, but I pushed it back in and got up, and because we were playing hockey at the time, it didn't hurt. I just had a lot of adrenaline. Apparently, this is more common than I would expect because later on I was walking down like the hallway and my knee popped out and I was like dying of pain. And I'm like, okay, something's wrong. We ended up getting surgery, and then I seemed fine. And then we moved to Spain, and when we were in Spain, about every single month while we were there, I would dislocate my knee while playing soccer or just anything in PE.
So it would keep happening.
So
Okay.
yeah, I'd be on crutches for like two to 3 days every single month, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And then, interestingly enough, my tendons never ripped; they just stretched. So when we got back to the U.S., yeah, we went to. I think it was doing better because I didn't need to take any PE classes or anything.
Mhm.
So, but eventually it just snapped again or popped out. And my parents were like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the doctor this time." They didn't trust the socialist medicine or whatever in Spain, and there was like a language barrier as well. So that was the reasoning behind not doing it earlier. But when we got in, he's like, "Oh, like imagine a rubber band. Your tendons are like whoop, like stretched out as much as possible. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a tendon from this knee and put it in there, and so I have an extra tendon like holding my knee, pulling it outside a bit more.
Where'd the tendon come from, though?
It came from my lower leg. So I have a scar right here, and then a couple scars over here.
Is there anything that other tendon did?
I think I don't know. It might just have grown back. They might have just like pulled off a part of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. The other option was use like a dead person's, but that has a higher chance of like tearing. And I think the other option was like using like pigs or something. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So it's like you just use his. I was like young at the time, and that seemed to help for a while. But later on, I just had a lot of arthritis in my knee, and it was just like painful to like bend it. And so
That's why you had a cane.
I got another surgery, and then I had a cane because this outraged me. But I got surgery. They went in and they're like, okay, we're gonna scrape out some cartilage that's growing in there, and this should help. And they told me the name. I forgot the name of the surgery. This was a while ago. And it helped for a little bit. After it was painful after surgery, but then like weeks later, I was like, okay, I'm doing better. And then it started hurting again, and I was like, okay, I have to be on a cane. Like whatever. This is the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I think I would need to be on a cane is because I didn't do the physical therapy that I was being assigned to do. I was like, that's homework. I'm not gonna do homework. Screw that. I was too cool for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my knee just didn't heal right. And I ended up using a cane. It was for about like 2 or 3 years. And I mentioned that last surgery and how it kind of infuriated me because later on in a psychology class, they were talking about placebo effects and how the more extreme a treatment is, the stronger the effect of the placebo is. And they mentioned the surgery that I had.
Oh.
And I'm like, they gave me a fucking placebo surgery!
So their placebo was believing that there was no more pain?
The placebo effect would be that like my knee would heal itself because like the placebo effect is that like something like your body can just heal if it thinks that it's being healed.
Yeah.
And so
those are legal? They can give placebo surgery?
like technically like it's like
and you pay for it?
yeah, you pay for it. like
They have to fully immerse you.
they have to fully immerse you. But I think
Can they reimburse you after you find out?
No. Like well, technically even if you know it's a placebo, it doesn't reduce the effectiveness of the placebo treatment. So he could have told me, hey, it's a placebo, we're gonna go in and dig around your knee. Yeah. It's gonna suck, but then you're gonna feel better.
Wow.
And it's very fascinating, but I was outraged. I'm like, what the heck? I think that legally speaking, it's not a placebo. There have been like, I don't know if they tested it against people who like they like go cut up on a scar and said, oh okay. I don't know if they did a test necessarily, but in later tests they have looked at it and said, oh, it's not any better than a placebo. Therefore, it's probably just a placebo. Any effects that happen.
Okay.
So that was interesting, but later on, I started to work out. I started to lose weight and become healthy, and then like doing squats and stuff, deadlifts. My knee just stopped hurting one day, and I'm like, oh, this is physical therapy. This is what physical therapy was meant to be.
Yeah.
But I still some days like if I'm doing like leg extensions like on a machine, I'm like pushing up, I'll like feel like a creaking in my knee joint. Like the best way I can explain it is a noise. It's like. So yeah, that's what it feels like.
I never had anything extreme. I just had like tendinitis in my knee, and it was always there. And then just casually working out, because I was the same. I wouldn't do like proper, like I wouldn't go home and do physical therapy. I would go to physical therapy
and do physical therapy at physical therapy.
Yeah, that's what it was for. And then I would go home, or I would just do track. I would run, but I would just hurt myself.
Yeah,
I wouldn't like heal myself. So then college, I would actually heal myself, and now it's at a point where the only thing that'll hurt my knee is like a 12-mile hike in the Adirondacks with packs on, or like running some insane amount and actually hurting myself.
Yeah. But
now it's just like my body just heals.
Mine still aches, interestingly enough. At the beginning of every like I don't know if it's like at the beginning of the fall, but in the fall, like when winter's coming and like the weather's changing, like my knee starts to ache more for like 3 days. So it's like it's not better. I'm an old person already, but we already knew that. So
you're actually getting younger as you get older.
Maybe
less pain.
Yeah.
Nice. I like your drawing, Joe. You really spent a lot of time on that.
Oh yeah, I call it Jake.
Nice.
Because Jake drew it.
Oh, me too. It's really abstract and
First, when you're drawing it,
philosophical.
the dot, it looks like an eye for a bird. Because you can see the beak
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
then the rest of it, I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
It's all birds.
It's called
Maybe-
being bored in econ.
Maybe a clothespin. Yeah. That's why we got 22 out of 40s on our econ test.
Yeah. I'm starting to regret our lack of care, but it's fine.
I don't regret it whatsoever.
We
You're
got
on
a
your
B, dude.
Wait until we get an A.
Yeah, we will.
Just wait.
I've yet to not. I've gotten an A on every econ class I've taken in Bang. Got a 4.0 in econ. I'll take that
Yeah.
probably.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Joe, what,
'Cause
what are you
econ
studying?
Computer engineering.
Computer engineering. Were you also taking like economics?
So freshman, sophomore, I had all the econ courses. I had the 160, 162.
Yeah.
So I had the intro ones.
What?
It's
If
like-
you don't mind, when did you take the, like what year would that have been? Because I was like those were the first classes that I took, or one of them was. We might have been in the same class.
It was freshman year, so I came in 2018, 2017,
Ooh.
fall of 2017, and then spring of 2018. Yeah,
Were you in Kenya?
I took 160 and 162 in high school.
Oh, okay.
I took 360
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
362. Yeah, I think I took. I forget which order. It was like freshman sophomore year that I took all these econ courses, and I'm like, all right, I only need one more econ course. I'm gonna take it this year.
Fair enough.
And now I'm taking it, and it turns out that I need to take 4 econ courses at Binghamton to meet the residency requirement for the minor.
Oof.
And I've taken, this is my third one.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually getting a minor in econ.
Ugh.
But that's what I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Unofficial minor.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because they don't let you take business courses.
You can't.
anything
You have
else.
to petition the school. Like I was able to take accounting and finance. Actually, if you take it in the summer, you don't have to petition. So I was able to take finance in the summer. I had to take. I don't think accounting is offered in the summer, but I took accounting. I petitioned them, and you have to have a good reason. I think usually.
Okay.
I said I'm actuarial. I need it for. So I mentioned the test. They also have like the other verification, like they're called the VEEs, which is your something education something,
Okay.
and accounting, finance, and probability, statistical, like mathematical statistics are those three
Okay.
for lower levels.
Yeah, because I went and talked to whoever, some fancy people at desks, and they're like, yeah, you can't take any courses. And I'm like, well,
They didn't even let you petition. Oh, okay, that sucks.
then I never heard about that before that I could
Huh.
petition it. This was also freshman year.
Gotcha.
This is like freshman year.
Yeah.
So I'm here and I'm like, what courses can I take? Like, you don't let me sign up for these ones.
Mhm. All the cool ones.
I'm talking to you here, and I'm like, can I take some courses?
Uh-huh.
And they're like, no, nope, bye bye. We'll see you later.
I had a classmate. We met in probability, and like we just kind of did all the same classes for the actuarial program, and she was talking to I think the head of the math department,
Mhm.
and asking why can't I take like the accounting course that I need for my actuarial like education. His response was, okay, well imagine that Harper School's like America and that SOM is like China, and there's like an interaction between the two, and it's like China's not going to help the United States unless the United States also helps China, or something like that. And I'm like, this is very convoluted. I'm like, you guys are both under Binghamton. Like, imagine like instead of this, it's like one of them's like New York, and the other one's like Connecticut. It's like you would think that the United States could just like you two work together, not like
Yes.
U.S. versus China going on over here.
Yeah.
This is not how it works.
Yeah.
Because freshman year, I'm going to them, and I'm like, I am shocked that there is no communication between them
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They send the students as advisors.
And like, yeah. And you can also look department to department. Like, I just know from jumping around when I was trying to be able to study abroad, just working from like the Harper department to the finance to the student affairs, like just all of them just have no idea what the other people are doing.
Hmm.
And it's all like, have you talked? Oh, go talk to them. Like, no, I just came from them. And they said to come to you.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, go to them. And it's like, okay.
It blows my mind that that's how it works.
Yeah.
Like, you send the student there.
When you don't know what to do, then just go to them.
They're just parenting. Go ask your mom. Go ask your back and forth.
Eventually, you get to a point where you'll push them over the edge
And then
to
they're
do
fine.
something.
I'll do it then.
You get to the next level,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then you
they
do it again.
tell you. Yeah.
takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Just be like, well, I guess I'll wait. I'll meet with somebody to have a 5-minute conversation. I would always fucking hate that. Like, I had so many fucking problems with the whole study abroad thing. It was always just a battle to talk to one person. And the person would think, like, oh, like, are you having some problem getting your classes to transfer? Like, yep. And she was like, oh, well, did you look at the... Yep, I looked at the requirements. She's like, oh, yep, I got all that down. She's like, oh. And I'm like, yep, I did all these things. She's like, okay. And I'm like, and you guys still denied me. She was like, oh, well, that wasn't me. You'd have to talk to somebody else. I'm like, okay, great. Can I talk to them? She's like, well, they're all pretty busy at the moment, and I don't really know how that would work. I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do then? And they're like, have you emailed them? Like, yeah, they told me to meet with somebody. And they're like, well, you should email them again. I'm like, great, I'm leaving. Like, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went. But it worked in the end, so.
I remember before you were going, I think you were talking to me about how, like you signed up for some courses and like you thought that they were going to count for your graduation or something.
That's also true, yeah.
Yeah, and then...
I had a whole shit show. Or actually, maybe you're talking about something else. Oh, yeah, no, because what I'm thinking about, I don't even remember if the problem's then, but I remember when I actually got to Leeds, which is the university I brought at, and this just shows, I guess, how universal this problem is. I was told repeatedly, since they have all the classes recorded, you can have them at the same time, it's fine,
yes.
blah, blah. I'm like, okay, great. Because I want to take all these classes, and they all count for my major, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. And then I get there, and... So I did what I was told I could do. I didn't go to any of the classes because they would be at the same time. There would be like 2 or 3 classes at noon, right? And I was like, whatever, I don't give a shit. And then I started getting these emails like, Jake West, there's a problem for my new Leeds account. I'm like, whatever, I'm studying, bro, I don't care. Literally by the end of the week, I got an email and they're like, we need to meet by this day or your visa will be revoked. Oh. And I was just like, oh, gotcha. Yeah. And then I met with them and I had to drop some classes and change everything around, blah, blah. I think I remember what you were talking about though, because I had another issue but this was on me, so I wouldn't blame them. It's because I sifted through, made this perfect schedule, and then realized all those classes were for the spring semester and not the fall semester. Because they they apparently display both of them and don't distinguish between the two until like whatever. I don't know. I was like, okay. I pretty much did everything wrong, but it's fine. We got through it.
Worked out.
Definitely worked out. Yeah. Just took forever.
Yeah, I haven't had too much with going between different schools. Maybe freshman year, because I was trying to figure out the econ stuff. I'm like, will you let me major in econ while I'm doing the engineering? Because I had already had so many courses. And really, I was just looking for more courses to take. Yeah. And they're like, you can't really do this. And then they were telling me I would have had to meet all the Harper requirements as well as the Watson requirements. So I would have also had to take like a foreign language and done all the writing credit stuff. Yeah.
Because you wanted to do a dual degree, not a dual major.
Yeah, dual degree. Yeah, it would have been dual degree.
Which is a lot more intense, yeah.
So it would not have worked. And now it's all in the engineering school, like the ECE department. But now it's difficult because I can't go into their office and bother them.
That's been annoying me too, yeah.
That's what's,
Yeah, like...
I miss that. Just being able to walk in and be like,
here's my problem.
I have an issue.
Like, I have some papers. Like, look at these papers. Here's my problem. Fix it, please. Yeah. Like, something that I've been having to do to find internships. Because I don't think I mentioned this, but for the MBA program, in order to graduate, you have to have an internship sometimes. Okay. Yeah, and you actually have to pay tuition if it's not during a semester. So you have to work and then pay them, which is fun. Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, there's like career services people, and they're like, just walk in, like it'll be fine. But I'm like, if I just have a quick question of like, I need help with my resume, or I'm getting a lot of interviews, like how do I balance this, or how do I choose which company to pick if I get multiple offers? Like something that could be super quick. I have to like make an appointment that could be like 2-3 weeks out, depending on how booked they are. And it's like, I just, like, if I was on campus, I could just walk in and be like, hey, here's my problem. Help me for 5 minutes. I'll be out of your hair. But I'll, like, book it, like, 2 weeks in advance, like, 30-minute period. I'm going to talk about this one issue. Yeah. Where it could just be, like, a yes or no answer.
Even emailing them. It's, like, 50% chance to get a response.